Hi guys. So I was talking earlier today about do mental health labels actually help? It was just mainly do labels in general help really? You know, like do they actually do anything really to help it? Like as humans we like to rationalise everything, we've a tendency to overestimate our own abilities and we think we're very smart, but we have to remember that we're animals as well. Um you might think like what do I mean by that? But what I mean is, and I was talking about it in part one earlier, like, there's usually a pretty reasonable explanation as to why a person develops a certain personality type. Um, and, like, that's when we talk about personality disorders. Um, FYI, I'm not one of those people who thinks that depression is just a chemical imbalance. I don't think that at all. I think there's much more of a spiritual kind of reasoning behind it. Um, and I'm not getting all hippy dippy on you. I mean, shit happens, yes, but how much can you take? How much is in the family? I think it's a combination of everything. Like it's not just one thing. It's very complicated. There's no easy explanation for it. But safe to say, I don't just think it's take these pills. You don't have enough of this chemical in you, so here have this, and there you go. And it messes around with serotonin, not dopamine. If you can, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. What about dopamine? The that feel good hormone as well. I know serotonin is a happy hormone, but dopamine is like that reward hormone. And that's what gives you that really positive feeling. That's why you take drugs that mimic that reward feeling, like the likes of cocaine. Gives you that nice hit that you go, oh yeah, I like that. I want more. But like I was saying, my friend Stephen, who came on the show, was diagnosed with schizophrenia, which is a very serious mental illness characterized by hallucinations and delusions, psychosis. But so you're hearing things that aren't there, you're seeing things that aren't there. That would be hallucinations. You might even I heard a horrible case where people feel like there's something crawling in their skin. Fuck me, God love those people. That sounds absolutely horrendous, but the medication is quite strong as well, and like it's basically a lesser of two evils. So you're taking something that makes you feel, yeah, it's gonna still make you feel shit, but at least you're not seeing things and hearing things that aren't there. Um, and like I was saying, he took drugs, psychoactive drugs, like we were talking before, and he took mushrooms, and they're psychoactive. You're gonna start hallucinating on them. Weed, you smoke weed, you'll start hallucinating. Um, Delusions would be more. I think the Russians are out to get me, or I think the government are after me. Usually, it's based in your own thing, like your own beliefs and your own culture. So, for instance, the Catholic Church are out to get me, or you might be a very religious person or raised in a religious household, and it's a case of I have the devil inside me, and you hear people like literally carving themselves open, like self mutilating behaviour. It's a very severe mental illness. How it develops, like, very complicated, but from what I can see, and like there's my dad's girlfriend's brother has schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia as well, quite a bad one. And he worked in Dublin Airport, which he used to be outgoing. He used to do loads of different things, and one day, like I think the stress of that job, like working in any airport, is going to be extremely stressful. I've heard from loads of people. It's not a pleasant place to work, from what I hear. Um, and look, stress is going to come in all shapes and sizes, and every career I think is going to bring a certain level of stress with it. But all depends on your threshold. It depends on what environment you grew up in beforehand. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of going for like the extreme one. Like all mental illness is extreme. Sorry, one sec. But while it's all extreme and it all affects people in its own way, the solution to it, from what I can see, is get you a label. Just give you a label and then drug you up. Medication after we've labelled you. What medication for what condition? And then it's like, oh, well, this one didn't work. There's another one. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, there you go. Then we find one that does work, like an antidepressant. Oh, yeah, here you go. Not working. Up the dose. And then it's like, oh, I've gone to the highest dose. Here's an antipsychotic along with that the antidepressant. Well, you're not even psychotic, you know. Um, like what happened with my brother. I don't like him being on them personally. Olanzapine. But look, it's up to him. He says they're doing something, so fuck it. We'll have to see. But he's not psychotic. He had depersonalization and derealization. He believes. Don't know if they were ever diagnosed, but he said he just felt like he wasn't present, like dissociated really badly. I've done that myself, and sometimes it can actually be quite pleasant, you know. Sometimes you're annoyed because you're like, I need to be switched on. Um, but he was very vulnerable, and they basically just gave him every drug under the sun and told him, if that doesn't work, take this. Would you like to start these? Would you like to take beta blockers? And he was frail, was having a heart attack, you know. Labels, like, they can be helpful, yeah. Like, me knowing what can affect my autism badly, but then again, a lot of that is through trial and error, so I kind of give myself the safety net of going, okay, well, you know, I've tried this. I can get more stimulated and overstimulated with autism, so maybe I'll pull back in this area. Okay, grand. That's a good way of looking at it. So I do think there is some sort of positive to it, but doctors just rely on labels way too much. And like I was saying, if you've got someone who was heavily abused as a child and it was weak, you know, and it was weak to show emotion because it was going to be used against you, you know, and adults were supposed to be looking after you, they abused you, they manipulated you, you'll develop stuff like antisocial personality disorder because, you know, that's just what happens. You had to survive, so it's a very dog eat dog world out there, and if I don't fuck this person over, they'll fuck me over, basically. Do you know, that kind of way? It's probably the best personality disorder to use because usually when you look at, I mean, serial killers are the best example of how extreme it can get. Not everybody with antisocial personality disorder is like that. And I'm only going off what I see and what I've researched myself. Um, but, and I'm not going to start trying to diagnose people, but I would say that one, like, is probably the trickiest to manage, but it's not a death sentence. You know, not everyone who has it is a criminal, but I would say a lot of people who have it, it's kind of like you have to be violent to have it because you're antisocial, you're exploiting people. But then they say, like, there's people who have it that aren't violent, you know, they can be extremely manipulative, they can be thieves, they can break the law, but they're not actually violent. So it's a complicated one again. But what I like to look at isn't necessarily putting the label on. I'm not a doctor anyway, so I can't diagnose anyone. But I think, as I said earlier, and this is something I wanted to really touch on, I was thinking of it and trying to get it to come back to me, but this is what it is. As human beings, what is the key goal? Survival. How do you survive? You know, when you're a child, you're completely dependent on your parents. And I'm sure everyone will agree with me on that, but you seek out their approval. And whatever gets you that approval, you're going to keep doing it. Like I said, you want to get praise. You know, I'm only loved when I'm praised. I'm not bad when I do something wrong. I'm bad when I do something wrong and get caught. So you see the difference there. It's very subtle, but it's like, okay, fair enough. Sorry, one moment. It's not the right thing to teach you is if you do something bad, you're infringing on other people's rights. So you shouldn't do it. Not, oh, it's only bad because you made me look bad. So you get that sort of way. That's a very narcissistic and antisocial type way to act. it's like, okay, I don't care about you just for being you. I want you to make me look good. If you don't do that, I don't love you. You're not important to me. I only want to talk about things that I want to talk about. If you grow up in a household where you're not chastised at all and allowed to do whatever the fuck you want, you're gonna grow up thinking I can do whatever the fuck I want and there'll never be any consequences to my actions. Um, which are the worst people in society. Like, there are people that you're gonna meet that are gonna be very intimidating, very threatening, very callous and cold. And I can tell you about that because I've met people like that. I'm not saying they're diagnosed with this or whatever because I'm not here to label people. What I'm here to say is people that you've noticed. You usually, if you have any idea about their backstory, you'll see how people treat them, and that's why they end up the way that they do. If you look at their backstory and if you know their parents and how the parents act around them, you'll kind of get an inkling as to why they're the way they are. Um, I have a mate whose dad left, but his mum always blew smoke up his arse and said how wonderful he was and could do no wrong. You know, um, my parents would have been a lot more humble in that regard. It almost was as if everybody else was right and we were wrong. Do you know what I mean? At least hearing them, it's like they took everyone's word above mine and my brother's. It's it's like, oh, these people are great, these people do all these things, but what about us? We don't really have a set of values. Do you know what I mean? I'd say very malleable. Yeah, that'd be the word I'm looking for. Where they'll complain about someone behind their back, my family, like, but they seem like they almost take in everything the person says and they don't really offer anything themselves. Quite gullible, I would say, in a lot of ways. And I'd say vulnerable to those who are very, grandiose and extroverted and, trying to domineer and impose their way on you. It's like my parents thought, oh, aren't these people wonderful? Or aren't they assholes? And we'll just shut off from them. Like having a friend like that who you could see him, he's very childish when he doesn't get his own way. It's like a kid, because he just was used to being propped up and bigged up, and um, you can see when he doesn't get his own way how negatively he reacts. And then everything like he's ever really done has been through a family member or a friend, like every job he's gotten. And I'm not saying he didn't work hard in them, but what I'm saying is you get the fuck up in that instance more so than you would if it was working for someone you don't know. You know what I mean? So he was joking about the float, for a tail being like there was something like €300 plus missing from it, and he was laughing and joking about it, and I was there like I got shit before. Now I mean it was a place that carried less cash, but a tenner, and I was getting given out for it, even though it wasn't my fault in the end. The issue got solved, but do you know what I mean? You're not held as responsible if you know the person, they're a family friend or their family. Um, it's different. So he's always going through, oh, just demand the raise, just demand this, and it's like, no, they will fuck you over, they'll throw you out and go, I'll get somebody else in. Um, but I guess having that self confidence and belief to go, I want this, I'm going to ask for it, is important as well. Then, like, you take another friend, and I say, I'm not going to mention names, but um, take him, and he's kind of just left off, and his parents don't really care, but it's real. Like, don't make us look bad. Don't do. And he's an anxious wreck, and he kind of just gravitates towards people who are popular and have status, let's say, to look after him. It's very much I need mind and you look after me because I can't do it myself because they've basically never taught me. It's a very vulnerable state to be in, and we'll just go with the flow of the loudest voice in the room. That's how he is. Um, and that's with two parents there, so it's not always a case of, dad left, so that's it, you're fucked. you can be fucked and have both parents there if they're both useless. You know what I mean? Um, and then looking at my own example, like again attaching labels, and I know I am aware of the irony that I have basically at the details of my channel in the description, ASD, BPD, UPD, and haven't put IBS down there yet. And I labelled myself as a soothing side survivor. You know what I mean? Survived that terrible life-ending event, uh, life-altering, would we say? But it's not hard to see why I'm such an anxious person by nature. You know, like when I'm five, like I'm very young, my dad leaves, then he comes back, then he leaves, then he comes back. There's nothing is ever set in stone. My mum being very depressed, like I've talked about that, you know. Over Christmas it was miserable. She could flip as well, like she could be very angry over the smallest things and get really pissed off with you, and you'd be there like, what did I do wrong? You know, very loving for sure, but very volatile at times. You know, like if I said something the wrong way, it'd be like even with the wrong tone. That makes sense. Sorry, one sec. You know, like I remember before having a chat with her, and I said, and like being autistic, I will say my voice can be quite monotone, so I could say something that can sound a bit sarky, whereas I'm just kind of saying it plain faced. She said it, and I was like, "Oh, good for you." Now it could kind of sound like, "Oh, good for you," as if I don't care. Move on. She went ape shit, called me a little shitbag and all these things, and said, "Oh, you know, you're ungrateful little prick and all this stuff. You can go to your room and you're there kind of walking on eggshells." That was a common enough occurrence, and that kind of stuck with me, you know. Because when I look back, it's like the reaction did not justify what was said at all. Um, Plus, everybody in school, like always, because it was a bit reactive, you know, trying to drag me down. I grew up in an environment full of losers, I will say, and unfortunately, that rubs off on you a little. Um, and I felt like a bit of a loser a lot of the time. Felt like a lot of a loser, to be honest with you. Um, Still do, you know. I was surrounded by people who'd bring you down. You know, they were in awe of everybody else, but you have to stay in your lane. You know, you're not great, and that's why I'm talking about rugby before. That was something where I was like, yeah, you're very good, and we'll need you to play in every single team. But if you think you're gonna get anywhere, you're not, because you're not that good. It's like, well, you use me when it suits you, don't you? But you don't think I'm that good. It seemed like I only got praised when I told them I couldn't play, and they were trying to manipulate me into playing and telling me how great I was. But if I burnt myself out and was, you know, playing every week, we won't give you any praise. We'll use and abuse you. But as soon as you leave, oh, you're wonderful, you're great, we need you. Um, in ways they wouldn't do with everybody else. So I didn't have the confidence to say no. Like even talking to my mum, she didn't like a job and she left after a day. The shame would be too much. And I've said that. I mean, I repeat myself a lot. I know that. I understand, but it's because it's relevant. You know, it's very relevant, especially in this one. It is relevant though. It's just not having that confidence to stand up for yourself, and then when you do, it's out of proportion because you've let it get to up and up. Um, Always questioning what reaction is right or wrong. You know, like looking at my example of my brothers, you would think like, and it's always used against us. So I guess it's the kind of way of two big lads. We should be this way. We should be that way. The stomach problems we have, unfortunately, I've researched and often linked to childhood trauma, and I think there's a lot of it, a lot more than I ever thought there was, and it seems like there is because, yeah, fuck me, there's been a lot of shit happening. Like the UPD diagnosis, the BPD diagnosis would make sense considering I want my dad to stay because he keeps fucking leaving. My mum's up and down and trying to make her happy, and I do feel like a kid in many ways. I feel incapable of going out and dealing with the world. I feel like I've done adult things, but I'm just a child acting like an adult. I'm a man child, for want of a better word. Um, Very vulnerable. I feel extremely vulnerable, and I'm very skeptical about medications because doctors have put me on them, and they have fucked me up so much. Like when I think back to the damage that antidepressants have done to me, like my sex drive went way down, and then I was embarrassed that if I was to have sex with a girl, I wouldn't be able to get it up. Like, I mean, that's the God's honest truth. How embarrassing would that be? You're never going to live that one down. That's something you're never getting over. It was genuinely something that I thought about. Um, as a 15-year-old, you're not going to read all the side effects. Maybe your parents might, if but you trust the doctors, and it just feels like to me you can't because they will just give you another pill. If the side effects of the medication that you didn't have before that medication come on, so say I got a rash like right here, didn't have a tattoo on it at the time, but I got a really bad rash there, and never had any problems with my skin in that way before. I had bad acne as a kid, but that was all along here and not really on my back. But the doctor just goes, "Oh, that's a kind of eczema in your arm. Here's a cream for it." Never once said that it could have been caused by the medication, and I looked and it was quite a common side effect of fluoxetine or Prozac, as it's also called, um, which just isn't good enough. So many of them, and I get they can't go through every single side effect with you, but they could say these are the most common ones that you will probably experience. You might not, but you probably will, because most people do. They just don't do it, in my experience. You have to ask, you have to basically fucking diagnose. And then I went into a new doctor for only like 30 minutes, and I said I found antidepressants terrible. So is there any other alternative? Um, then she was like, "Yeah, take the antidepressant again with the sleeping tablet." And I said, "Yeah, but my libido, my sex drive is gone when I'm on these antidepressants." "Well, I would be happy to prescribe you Viagra." And I was like, "I'm 21, I'm not taking that. Stuff from my fucking granddad." um, they just are all about labels and pills. They're not willing to concede that they're wrong and maybe there's something else. They don't delve into the situation at all, in my experience. And like I've just described, and I talked about it earlier in the video, where if you're only good when you achieve something, you become quite narcissistic. If it's very push pull, and 1 minute something's fine, you don't know if you're coming or going. Unstable, instability thing, borderline, emotionally unstable. Um, Perhaps you grow up in a very stressful environment, very paranoid, paranoid personality disorder, where some people, they just think the worst about everything, just negative in every aspect. There could probably be a good explanation for that, and it sounds an awful like paranoid schizophrenia, where if there's a negative to be taken from any situation, that's what I'm taking. You could say, you could be looking at someone, right, and I've looked at this before. Um, just as an example, it can be as simple as, say, if I'm the person with paranoid personality disorder, two people could be talking and then they catch your eye for a second, but then they start whispering in each other's ear and they're laughing, and I think, oh fuck, they're talking about me. Now, in my experience, that's a pretty reasonable thing to assume, or at least to go, "Oh, were you talking about me?" But can you imagine that with every single situation? That's how you feel. That'd be horrendous. That's one I don't really know much about. I know the cluster bees are only really, and this just shows you how humanity works. The only reason why we know more about cluster B is because it infringes on us. The other personality disorders cause a lot of trauma to the person who has it, but because it doesn't affect us, doesn't seem like an issue. When you hear about avoidant personality disorder, they need a lot of reassurance. They're very, as you think, avoidant, they withdraw, you know. The narcissist is very extroverted and normally they go out and they exploit. Antisocial personality disorder, they exploit, you know, they're violent, they're manipulative, they're deceitful, they lack empathy, they lack fear as well, a lot of them, so they're quite cunning and scary people to be around, you know. Like a psychopath or a sociopath, very chilling individual to be around. Um, because they're so manipulative, so vindictive, and they're also very calm. So it's like, fuck, this person is cold as ice. I'm getting nothing back here, no emotions whatsoever. That's not saying they can't fake them, so do watch out, but you think to yourself, like, that's because of the environment they grew up in. I mean, I can't imagine anyone becoming that way unless either a parent or a caregiver did that to them, or, you know, really rough area they grew up in where there was a lot of violence and trauma. They might have been taken under the wing of a gang member or something. You never know. But either way, adverse life events. Like, everyone who has a personality disorder or a mental illness doesn't have bad parents. You know, like, you can fuck up as a parent and not be a bad parent, and I understand that. You know, nobody is perfect. I can't imagine how difficult it is to be a parent, but delve into the shit. Ask people about their family life. I was never really asked. I had to kind of go, oh, maybe that's why. And having a therapist go, well, if I'd heard that when you were a child, I would have been taking you out of that house. It's kind of like, oh shit. But then you're like, that's not good to me now, is it? Because all the damage has been done. It feels. But I'm getting there. I do love my family, so I'm just saying that. But there has been a lot of shit going on. um, Labels can be great. They can help you have a bit more of a safety net, but you also have to kind of go, look, let's delve into the shit. Let's dig deeper into the shit. um, that's what's really helped me. Dialectical behavioural therapy, compassion focused therapy has allowed me to get it all out there and just go, look, I've had a shit time. There's a lot of shit that's happened, but how I've responded is not perfect, but it's a response to that shit. Um, Medication is not going to fix that, and too many people try and fix it with medication. And if you think to yourself, like, I've also Oisin that I brought on the channel, another mate of mine, a lad that I met through compassion focused therapy. I don't think he'll mind me saying, but every single one of his psychotic episodes was brought on by drugs. He said it was all drug induced. Now, he also, and he describes it in the video if you want to go check it out. It's my first interview. But he said that there were a lot of kids in his family, you know, at 12. So imagine competing for places and all in that. And you're just like, oh fuck, where do I fit in with this? I'm not really sure. There was 12 in his family, people, you know, including his parents, just to mention. But he said it, and he was like, I was a needy child, and I can imagine being a needy child when you're in that environment and you are a bit more book smart as opposed to sporty. Like, two of his brothers played for Dublin Gaelic football, so you're there kind of going, well, they're two star athletes, so they obviously have set the bar very high. And then having a dad that's into sport, you kind of go, oh right, yeah, that's what he wants. You can probably feel like a bit of a disappointment. I know Shane's such a great guy, like in so many ways. Having those standards set unbelievably high, I can imagine you'd be quite anxious and crying out for attention. Maybe that gets to a stage where you're like a little bit manic. You know, you're up and you're down, and you're very depressed one minute, but then you're up again, and something just triggers you. Smacking a label on and giving you a shit ton of medication. Like he says himself, his days are very rough. Is that good? You know? Like, not putting yourself in a life-altering situation or risking the S word, like sued inside, getting arrested or getting committed to a psych ward. I guess not doing that is great, but is being sedated to fuck with a lot of medication good for you? I don't think it is. I don't think that's the answer. I'm so grateful I was never committed. Like, I literally, if I was psychotic in any way, or well, I wasn't psychotic, I wouldn't know. I don't think I ever was. I was definitely dissociated, but and was talking shite. But I would think I was always with it. I always knew what I was at. But the only time I was psychotic was a drug-induced episode with weed. I'll never do that again. But I always managed to pull myself together and go, no, I'm fine, I'm corpus mentis. I don't need to spend the night in a cell, or, well, not always, as you know, but never got committed. And then sometimes I was thinking, I need to be committed, because I'm so bad, I will do something stupid. But now, hearing people telling me about the psych wards, it seems like a fucking horrible place, and your rights are just taken away from you. It's a bit medieval. I have visions of Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Or in America, I think it's just called Cuckoo's Nest. Cuckoo, cuckoo. Because you're cuckoo. I always used to say cuckoo. Cuckoo, cuckoo. But it's it, like, he's a good guy, O'Shea, sometimes he has a very vivid imagination, put it that way, but it's also interesting listening to him now. I can imagine if he doesn't have his medication, yeah, fair enough, he could probably get even more vivid and mania could take hold. But what quality of life do you have drugged out of your mind? And if you're given loads of pills as a young person, you're kind of just like used to taking pills that a doctor prescribes. Now you're used to popping pills when you have a problem. So now you have illicit drugs as well, because it's like, oh, it's just another medication. Only this one's on the street, the other one's in the chemist. So look at people who had never taken heroin in their life. Now all of a sudden they're addicted to pain medication. Percocet, Oxycontin, of course, being a huge one, and fentanyl being a massive killer because, it's 50 to 100 times more potent than street heroin. So you take that shit, it bulks up the heroin that you can sell as a drug dealer. Don't sell it. By the way, I did a project on drugs. Cocaine was my one in school, in college, university as it is now. FYI, if any employers are looking. But I was researching heroin because I got interested in what it was cut with, and fentanyl is used in fucking everything, even cocaine. So it's dangerous. And that's the thing, if you are used to taking pills every time you have a problem, like people pop Xanax prescribed by a doctor. Xanax is horrific to come off of. Benzos, one of the worst drugs. Benzodiazepines are one of the worst class of drugs to come off. Horrific, because you're used to taking them when you feel really anxious. Now you're bringing that anxiety down. Well, guess what? You come off that, that's coming back tenfold. So it's why you get so depressed when you come off cocaine if you're abusing that, because it's a stimulant. So that's bringing you up. The brain's used to getting hit with all this dopamine. Now, oh shit, we don't have it. Down it comes. It's why your balls shrivel up when you come off steroids, because you're pumping your testosterone up like that. Now you're not putting that synthetic testosterone in anymore. So guess what? Body's like, we've too much. The balls aren't producing anymore. Woo! They shrivel up. They go from that to that. And you're just kind of like, yeah, the body is trying its damnedest and we are pumping it full of this shit. So if you're taking drugs, you will become depressed when you come off them. You'll need them, you'll build up a dependency. Now, I know antidepressants, before anyone says it, are not addictive by themselves, but you can be addicted to the effects of them. Do you know what I mean? So they're not addictive by themselves, but you can become dependent on what they give you. And also the withdrawals can be so horrific that you become addicted to not getting that feeling. Then you get the withdrawals because you come off them because they're so horrific. The withdrawals are worse. then you think, oh, I'm feeling this way because I'm off my medication. But you wouldn't have felt that way in the first place if you didn't take them. Do you know what I mean? So you felt horrific to begin with because maybe you were drinking too much, like I was. Maybe you were taking too many drugs. Never been big for drugs apart from alcohol, which is a drug. I wish they'd start just including it in drugs. Um, I drink the odd time now. I had a few over Christmas, but I'm a lot better now. Um, I said I wasn't going to drink New Year's Eve because it just would fuck me up. But yeah, if you become dependent on this shit, you know, it's gonna fuck you up. And I'm not saying, look, disclaimer, do not stop taking your antidepressants if you're on them. Just saying that, because they definitely can help. In extreme cases, I believe they can. And in combination with therapy, brilliant. Um, but I do believe, my big belief is that talk therapy should be tried. Every talk therapy, an exhaustive list, should be provided to people. It's up to you now whether you do it or not. Like, you can't blame the medical professionals if they get you on a course of it, like DBT or CFT, even CBT, to start you off, and you choose to not go. That's on you. You have to actually want to get better. So that's another disclaimer. It's up to you to go to the therapies if they get them for you. I know it can be hard, believe me, I do, but you've got to do it. And then maybe in combination with medication, you try that out. But I just don't think labels are always a good thing. You can have too many. I've speaking to Oisin and Isabel, especially Isabel, just with the amount, another friend from CFT, with the amount of labels she was given, it just seems like, I asked her before, do they help to have them? Like ADHD, OCD, BPD, CPTSD. Oh, I'm pretty sure there was another one in there, but she's just been thrown a load of labels, and it's like, why? And then so many cocktails of medication, like, and then she was taking, she was self-medicating as well. So so you're kind of thinking with truffles and weed, you just don't know. Like, if you're putting all these fucking chemicals into your body, you don't know how much damage that is doing. And if you're a vulnerable person and you're going to a doctor, they should fucking know that and go, look, rather than putting an extra drug into your body, why don't we try coming off the fucking drugs that you're already taking? Baffles me, like I've done long periods now where I haven't drank, and on Christmas Day I had four pints supporting myself, but they looked alright. We'll say of Guinness, no hangover the next day, bit of a dry mouth, that's me. Shouldn't have done that, but please forgive that. But I didn't want any more. That's the thing, if I was a raging alcoholic, I know the first thing an alcoholic says is I'm not an alcoholic, but I was able to enjoy them and not want any more, which is a good sign. I believe when you're stressed, you will. Like, the thing is, right, when I'm hyper stressed, I crave a cigarette. Never enjoy smoking otherwise. Ever. But someone's smoking and I'm stressed, give me that. Just exhale. And then shite food. Why? Because you feel depleted. You want that sugary goodness, that fatty, salty goodness. You want the nicotine, you want the caffeine, you want that thing that releases that dopamine that I was talking about. It's just like, it's easy to get a label and be comfortable in that label and go, I can't do this because X, Y, Z. The amount of things, like when I was younger, I said I couldn't do because of autism. But then I went the opposite way and thought I could do it all. Or, not that I could do it all, I felt like I had to do it all. I have to prove them all wrong, that I can do this and I can do that. And I fucking burnt myself out. So it goes from one extreme to the other with me. That can be a thing with BPD, EUPD as well, where it's all or nothing thing, and you go from one extreme to the other. It's never a grey area. Do you know what I mean? So the labels, they can help to an extent. Medications can help to an extent, right? But I do feel like every every option before medication should be tried, and I think you should be absolutely certain before giving people a label, because that label can give them a very bad reputation. And if you don't seek help that's offered to you, that's on you. You know, maybe you need to get yourself to a place where you can accept it. But to any friends out there worried about people who are mentally ill, um, friends of people who are mentally ill, um, you can't force anyone to do anything. And I know that's fucking hard, believe me. As an empathetic person, I get you. But it's impossible. If they don't want to do it, you cannot force them. And if their heart is not in it and they're not willing to get the help and stick to it, you can't force them. And if you're not right yourself, you ain't going to be able to cure anyone. You're not going to be able to cure anyone anyway, but you're certainly not going to be of any use to anyone if your brain is fucked and you haven't gotten the help that you need. So you got to check in. Even therapists need to see other therapists after their own therapy. They have to check in. My brother's doing a psychotherapy course, and it came up that that's what you have to do, because think about it, you're listening to people's problems all day. It's bound to get in on you and fuck you up. So yeah, look guys, mind yourselves, stay well. And labels aren't the end of the world either. If you do get one, they can get it wrong too. Imagine that, doctors can get it wrong. Um, Not saying they're idiots or anything, I'm just saying be skeptical, because they don't delve into stuff. They go for the medical option, the medication. They want you to take the medication first. They rarely delve into it. So if you get a doctor that offers you a therapy, take it, try it, and see if it works. Believe me, it'll make such a difference. And then maybe if that doesn't work, or it could work, but you think, look, there's a little step here that I'm missing. Well, let's try a medication. But look, maybe not starting out on it all the time. I certainly don't think with me it's been very helpful. And I'm not alone. Lots of people have said that medications have fucked them up. The side effects have been horrific, particularly in the stomach. Like, I've gotten so many stomach problems already. So to add more medication to that caused stomach problems. And then what did they give me for that? Medication for the stomach, which gave me a fucking rash right here. That can be a side effect. Broken skin around the nose and the cheeks. That's exactly where I got it. And I've never had that issue ever before. So, go figure. But anyway, guys, rant over. Part 2 wrapped up of do mental health labels help? Do any labels help, really? To label yourself, I'm Dan, I'm autistic, I'm emotionally unstable. There's a way to ruin a date immediately. Guys, thanks very much for listening. Gotta go in and watch Big Fat Quiz of Everything with my family. They've started without me, but in fairness, they did wait around, and I just felt like I had to make this to wrap it up. But thanks very much. See you in the next one. Slán go fóill.